The night comes slow over the islands, not in a hurry, not trying to prove anything. It just spreads out across the sky like a soft blanket, the way someone might lay down a bedsheet when they are already half asleep. This is how night has always arrived in the Maldives. Calm, warm, and without rushing anyone. Even the sun seems to say, "Okay, I'll go now. You rest." And because this is a bedtime story, we also take our time. No stress, no loud sounds, just you, your slow breath, and the easy rhythm of the Indian Ocean somewhere in the background of your imagination. The Maldives, long before the resorts, long before travel bloggers discovered the idea of floating breakfasts, was a chain of quiet islands where life followed the same gentle pace as the waves. Small island communities spread over soft white sand, coconut trees leaning at the same relaxed angle you feel on a Sunday afternoon. Everything here had its own simple system, and no one argued with it. Not the people, not the birds, not even the fish. Tonight, we are stepping into that old world. But don't worry, we're not stepping too fast. This is the kind of story where you take a small step, then pause, then take another small step, maybe stretch a little, maybe yawn, the kind of world where even history seems a bit sleepy. When you picture these islands, think of low houses made from coral stones, not the scary, sharp kind. These were stones softened and shaped by years in the sea. They were always cool to the touch. If you sat inside one of these houses on a warm day, you would feel like you were sitting inside a giant seashell someone put in the shade. The roofs were made from coconut leaves, tied together so neatly that even the wind respected the craftsmanship. And oh, the wind! The Maldivian breeze was like a gentle friend who always arrived on time. Not loud, not dramatic, just soft enough to move your hair a little and make the coconut trees whisper secrets to one another. Some people say island wind is the best kind of wind, mostly because it minds its own business. As night settles, island life slows even more. You'd hear the faint sound of waves tapping the shore, like someone knocking politely on a door. No strong storms in this story, no drama, just the ocean breathing in and out, the same way you are breathing now. Way back in ancient times, before clocks became the rulers of everybody's schedule, people in the Maldives lived by these natural rhythms. They woke when the light came, worked while the day was soft, rested when the heat grew strong, and slowed down again when the sky turned orange. Evenings were the best time, that moment when the whole world felt like it was taking off its shoes and relaxing. Women in these communities played a big part in this peaceful rhythm. They organized the home, cared for the family, prepared food, wove mats, dried fish, collected coconut leaves, and kept the whole house running like a small, quiet machine. But remember, this is a bedtime documentary, not a busy one. So imagine everything they did happening slowly, gently, with long pauses and soft smiles. A typical evening in a Maldivian village might look like this: a mother finishing her chores, brushing sand from her hands, a grandmother sitting outside the house telling old island stories, children drawing patterns in the sand with sticks, and the smell of curry drifting through the air in exactly the right amount. Not too strong, not too light, just perfect enough to make you sigh with happiness. And no, we're not here to talk about anything wild or dramatic. This whole documentary is built to relax you, not stun you. So we avoid the storms, the pirates, the battles, and anything that would cause YouTube to raise an eyebrow. We focus on the simple moments, the calming parts of history that help your mind feel soft and heavy, ready for sleep. Now, picture yourself standing on an island shore. Night has arrived fully now. The sky is a deep blue bowl filled with stars that look close enough to touch, but far enough to let you sleep in peace. The moonlight sits on the water like a silver road. This is the kind of place where even the crabs walk slower at night. They take their time, tap, tap, tapping across the sand like tiny, sleepy drummers. If you listen closely, you might hear distant laughter, not the loud kind, just quiet giggles from a group of women finishing their evening chat. They talk about simple things, how the day went, what needs to be done tomorrow, whether the fish were biting today, and maybe which coconut tree has started leaning more than usual. These are the kinds of conversations that don't ask for solutions. They just float around in the air, easy and light. In old island culture, women were the heart of everyday life. They kept traditions alive, passed down stories and skills, and created a sense of calm that wrapped around the whole village like a woven mat. Nothing rushed, nothing stressed. Everything flowed like water moving around coral. And that is the feeling we want to set for this whole documentary. Slow, so soft it feels like a warm blanket, a little humorous when needed, just enough to make your shoulders drop and your mind loosen. We don't need big facts tonight. We don't need complicated history. We're not here for exams or university lectures. We're here for quiet company from the past. As we end this first chapter, imagine the island settling deeper into night. The wind grows even softer, the waves grow even slower. The stars become brighter, almost as if they want to watch over you. Life in ancient Maldives is calm, steady, and warm, like a story your grandmother might whisper just before you drift into sleep. When the sun rises over the islands, it doesn't pop up like some energetic bird. It rises slowly, like someone who stayed up too late the night before. The sky changes from deep blue to gentle gold, and the whole island wakes up with it, stretching, yawning, and moving at a speed your grandma would approve of. And in the heart of this slow-moving, warm world, the women of the Maldives carried their own special role, not with loud voices or big speeches, not with fancy medals, but with the simple, steady rhythm that kept every home, every family, and every island day running almost as smoothly as the waves. If the Maldives were a quiet musical piece, the women were the soft drum in the background, steady, calming, and always there. Women shaped family life in ways that don't look dramatic, but matter more than you think. They handled things that never appeared in history books, yet those things were the backbone of island living. Think of food, clothes, stories, traditions, memories, and all the tiny tasks that turn a house into a home. If life on the island was a boat, the women were the ones making sure it didn't leak. And somehow they did it all without shouting, "Hey, appreciate me." They just went on with their day, steady like the sea. A Maldivian woman might wake up early, just before the sun got too confident. She would check the hearth, sweep the sand that somehow sneaks in even when the door is closed, and maybe start the morning with a pot of tea. Not a loud tea, a calm, good morning world tea. The sound of boiling water was like background music, a soft bubbling that matched the sound of ocean waves nudging the shore, as if saying, "Hey, move a little." Women were organizers long before planners and calendars were invented. They kept track of everything: which coconut tree was ready for picking, which fish needed drying, what day the neighbor was coming to borrow something, which child was supposed to stay out of trouble and probably wasn't succeeding, and which chores needed doing before the weather changed. And somehow, even with all this, they still had time to smile at you if you walked by. One thing about ancient island life, everything was done together. The community was small, houses were close, and privacy was something the chickens enjoyed more than the humans. Women often worked side by side, laughing, chatting, sharing stories, and giving advice that sometimes sounded wise and sometimes sounded like something they just made up on the spot, but still helpful. Picture a group of women sitting under a big coconut tree, weaving mats out of dried leaves. Their hands move slowly, almost dancing. One woman tells a story about her childhood. Another shares a funny thing that happened earlier that morning. A third explains why her chicken refuses to lay eggs near anyone who wears red. No one knows if it's true, but everyone laughs anyway. There's something about these simple moments that makes island life feel like one long, warm lullaby. In many homes, women managed all the important decisions, not loudly, not bossily, but with the quiet confidence of someone who knows exactly where everything is stored. "Where is the rope?" someone asks. The mother answers without looking up, "Behind the pot." Nobody even questions it. She's always right. And roles were flexible here. Women weren't locked into one way of living. They helped with fishing when needed. They repaired nets. They tended gardens. They prepared coconut oil. They dried fish on racks that smelled like sunshine and salt. They even helped guide boats at times when extra hands were needed. But their most respected role was being the keepers of tradition. They passed down songs, stories, and customs the same way you might hand over a warm blanket, softly, with care. At night, children gathered around their mothers and grandmothers to hear tales about spirits of the sea, heroes of old, and animals that somehow acted wiser than humans. These stories weren't just entertainment, they were the glue that held the culture together. And maybe that's the sweetest part of their role. They weren't only caregivers, they were memory keepers. They knew which festival came when, how to prepare for it, which foods tasted better in certain seasons, and which coconut tree made the finest leaf bundles. They carried knowledge in their hands, their voices, and their quiet routines. If you ever lived in one of these old island communities, you'd learn something quickly. If you want to understand how the island truly works, follow the women. They know the secrets. They know the shortcuts. They know the real story behind every rumor, and they definitely know which coconut is good and which coconut is just pretending to be good. The gentle humor in daily life was also part of their charm. If someone slipped on a sandy step, the first thing a Maldivian woman would do is ask if they're okay. The second thing she would do is laugh. Not a mean laugh, but just the kind that turns the moment light instead of embarrassing. Simple, honest humor was woven into their day like the threads of their mats. Even when life got tough, they found small things to smile about. Maybe the fish escaped the basket again. Maybe the wind pushed the laundry across the yard. Maybe someone forgot where they kept the cooking pot, and it turned out to be right behind them the whole time. Everyday life wasn't perfect, but it was peaceful. And women kept that peace alive, like a soft lamp glowing in a quiet room. As the day cooled and the sun began its slow fall, the women finished their chores. They shook sand off their skirts, set aside weaving tools, washed their hands with water that felt cool even on warm evenings, and prepared dinner while the sky turned orange. Even the end of the day had its own rhythm, a calm rhythm, a sleepy rhythm, the kind of rhythm that says, "You're safe, you're home, everything is okay." Their role in society wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic, but it was the deep foundation that made island life steady, secure, and warm. Like the coral stones of their houses, they held everything together quietly. If you've ever walked into a modern house and thought, "Wow, this place has too many switches," then you will absolutely love the old Maldivian homes. These houses were simple, peaceful, and built in a way that made you feel like the world was hugging you. No fancy buttons, no buzzing machines, just coral stones, coconut leaves, and pure island calm. Let's take a slow walk inside one of these ancient homes. Don't rush. Nobody is chasing you. In fact, Even if someone tried to chase you on these islands, they'd probably get tired halfway and say, "Let's catch up tomorrow." The houses were usually built using coral stones. Yes, actual coral, but not the kind that breaks into sharp pieces if you step on it wrong. These stones were taken from old reef formations and shaped by hand until they were smooth and friendly. You could lean your back on them during a hot afternoon, and they felt cool, like they were hiding a piece of the ocean inside them. Coral stone walls didn't try too hard. They weren't tall and intimidating. They were honest walls, strong enough to hold, light enough to breathe, and always keeping the inside cool. Some people say these houses had better temperature control than some modern air conditioners, and honestly, they might be right. When you step through the doorway, the first thing you notice is the floor. Not tiles, not marble, just soft, packed sand swept smooth every morning. Imagine a floor you never have to mop. Just sweep and you're done. Very convenient. Unless a chicken runs through the house, then you sweep again. Inside, the air feels different. It's slow. It's calm. It smells like coconut, sea breeze, and a little bit of dinner from last night. But not in a bad way. More like a gentle reminder that this house has stories to tell if you sit quietly enough. Most homes had one main room. Think of it as the island version of a living room, bedroom, dining room, and sometimes even a small gossip corner all in one. Space wasn't a problem. People simply made it work. If you needed to sleep, you slept. If you needed to eat, you ate. If you needed to braid someone's hair, well, you sat down and did it right there. Furniture was simple too. Low wooden stools, woven mats, and maybe a trunk to hold important items like clothes, precious cloth, or that one cooking pot everyone pretended was new, but definitely was not. Now let's talk about the roof. Ah, yes, the coconut leaf roof, nature's own version of a soft umbrella. These roofs were made from dried coconut leaves tied together in bundles. Women were usually the experts at this. Their hands moved so fast and so neatly that you'd think they were part-time magicians. One leaf here, one loop there, a quick knot, and suddenly you have a waterproof roof that laughs at rain. And when the rain did fall, oh boy, what a sound. It wasn't loud or scary. It was soft and steady, like someone typing gently on the roof. If you lay down on a mat and closed your eyes, that sound could send you to sleep faster than any lullaby. Light came through small gaps in the ceiling or the open doorway. Sunlight didn't need permission. It just came in whenever it felt like it. Sometimes it created golden stripes on the wall. Other times, it hit someone in the face while they were trying to nap. But nobody complained. It was part of the charm. Cooking usually happened in a separate little outdoor kitchen. Imagine a small shed with a clay stove, some cots, and a spot for drying fish. When the wind blew the right way, the smell of cooking floated through the whole village, and everyone pretended they weren't hungry, even though they definitely were. Inside the house, evenings were the best. The whole home turned into a warm nest. Lamps made from coconut oil glowed softly, making the coral walls look like they were blushing. Shadows danced around the room like lazy old spirits who forgot what they came here to do. Families sat together, chatting about the day. Someone might weave a mat. Someone might clean fish. Someone might repair a fishing net. And someone, usually a kid, might keep asking questions that nobody has the energy to answer, but everyone smiled anyway. The inside of a Maldivian home wasn't big, but it felt big enough for everything that mattered. Stories, laughter, simple meals, the sound of the ocean drifting through the window, and the steady peace that came from living close to nature. At night, the family spread mats on the floor. Not thick mattresses, just woven mats that somehow felt more comfortable than they had any right to be. Maybe it was the sea breeze sneaking in through the door. Maybe it was the sound of leaves moving outside. Or maybe it was just the simple charm of having no stress. Sleep came easy here. And even if you woke up at midnight, you'd hear the soft whisper of the wind, the distant waves, and sometimes a rooster who got confused about time. Happens to the best of us. Another special part of island homes was the sense of community. If someone needed help fixing a wall, neighbors came. If someone needed coconut leaves for the roof, neighbors shared. If someone cooked something delicious, well, neighbors also showed up. Not to take food, just to say hello. But everyone knew what that really meant. These houses weren't just buildings. They were memories made of coral and coconut, shaped by hands and kept alive by generations of simple, peaceful living. And as you sit inside this quiet home, imagining the cool stone walls and the gentle sound of the wind, you can feel your own mind slowing down, just like life on the islands, just like every sleepy story passed down in these cozy coral rooms. If you ever lived on a tiny island, you would quickly discover something. Everybody knows everybody. And if they don't know you, don't worry. They will by tomorrow morning. That's just how island life works. The Maldives in ancient times was the same. Small communities, close families, and relationships that felt like soft ropes tying everyone together. Gentle but strong. In these old island villages, marriage wasn't a dramatic movie scene with crowds and fireworks. It was quiet, simple, and honestly, pretty relaxed. People didn't rush around asking, "Where's the cake?" or "Who forgot the rings?" No. Life here took the slow route. Even weddings walked on island time. A typical Maldivian marriage was more about families joining together than two people signing papers. It was about harmony, balance, and making sure everyone felt included. And trust me, on a small island, keeping everyone happy is a full-time job. If someone wasn't invited, they would know, and they would tell you they know. Very politely, of course. Women were at the center of this family system, not by force, not by rule, just by natural rhythm. They were the calm planners, the peacemakers, the ones who knew which cousin lived on which island and which aunt had borrowed which cooking pot 5 months ago. They kept all the family information in their minds like a secret map. Family life ran on cooperation. Husbands, wives, children, grandparents, everyone had a role, and the roles blended together like soft colors on the sea at sunset. Nobody said, "This is your job," or "That is my job." People simply saw what needed to be done and did it. If fish needed cleaning, someone cleaned them. If mats needed weaving, someone wove them. If a child was climbing a tree they shouldn't, well, someone shouted at them kindly. Marriage in these islands wasn't always a big ceremony. Sometimes it was a simple agreement between families, blessed by the community, followed by a small gathering with food, music, and more food. Because island celebrations always end up with extra snacks. That is a rule of nature. The couple would start their life in a coral stone home, maybe built by family, maybe shared with relatives, maybe next door to parents. And trust me, being next door to your parents on a tiny island is interesting. If you sneeze, your mother hears it. If you drop a cup, your aunt appears like, "Everything okay?" Community bonds were strong. Children grew up surrounded by many adults, not just their parents. A child might spend the morning with cousins, the afternoon with grandparents, and the evening with neighbors. Nobody worried too much. Everyone looked after everyone else. If a child wandered into another home, people simply gave them a snack and sent them back, or kept them for an hour because they were amusing. You didn't need babysitters here. The island was the babysitter. One thing that made Maldivian family life special was gentleness. People weren't in a hurry. They didn't shout unless a coconut was about to fall and hit someone, and honestly, that's a very good reason to shout. Most of the time, conversations were soft, calm, and coated with humor. Even disagreements were handled slowly. If two families argued, it usually went like this. Step 1, sit. Step 2, drink tea. Step 3, talk about the issue. Step 4, talk about something completely unrelated. Step 5, realize the problem wasn't that big. Step 6, drink more tea.
Tea was basically the island version of refresh and restart. The community was always involved in important moments. Weddings, births, festivals, fishing preparations, house repairs, and even storytelling nights. If your roof needed fixing, neighbors came. If you cooked something delicious, neighbors also came. Funny how that works. The strongest bond, though, was between women. They shared work, shared stories, shared worries, shared laughter. They supported each other in every part of life: marriage, family, child raising, celebrations, and even the small everyday tasks like washing clothes or preparing coconut leaves. Imagine a group of women sitting by the shoreline, washing clothes, while the waves slide over their feet. They talk, laugh, complain a little, very gently, and give each other advice that is sometimes wise and sometimes suspicious, but always said with love. And men? They did their part too: fishing, repairing boats, gathering coconuts, playing music, and helping with whatever needed doing. But even the men knew the truth. Women kept the whole community balanced like a perfectly stacked basket of coconuts. Evenings were the best time to see family life in action. As the sun dipped low, the whole village softened. Children returned home with sand in their hair and stories about the one crab that chased them. Women finished cooking. Men rinsed off the day's work. Lamps glowed like sleepy fireflies. Families gathered outside their homes, sitting together on mats. They talked about the day, shared food, and listened to the ocean. Sometimes grandparents told old stories, tales of spirits, fishermen, storms, and nights long before anyone in the village was born. These stories weren't just entertainment. They were lessons, history, and comfort all mixed into one. If a child asked, "Is this story true?" the grandmother would usually answer with something like, "Maybe yes, maybe no, but it's a good story, so listen." Family bonds also extended to celebrations. Weddings, naming ceremonies, harvest days, everyone joined in. Music played on simple drums, feet tapped on sandy ground, and laughter floated across the village like warm smoke. But beneath all of this, there was a deeper truth. Island families depended on each other, not because they had to, but because life felt better that way. The ocean surrounded them, the land was small, and the community was their world. Helping each other wasn't a task, it was natural, like breathing, like waves meeting the shore. And so marriage and family life in the old Maldives wasn't about rules or pressure. It was about connection, about building a peaceful rhythm with the people around you, about knowing you were never alone, not even at midnight when a rooster accidentally decided it was morning. As this chapter closes, picture the island at dusk, families sitting together, warm air touching their skin, coconut trees whispering above them, a soft laugh here, a calm conversation there, a world held together by love, tradition, and the quiet strength of community.
On a quiet island in the Maldives, life is always moved at the speed of the ocean tide, slow, gentle, with no hurry at all. And for Maldivian women in the old days, motherhood was simply a part of that calm rhythm. Nothing dramatic, nothing loud, just another part of island life, like rinsing fish, sweeping the courtyard, or watching the sunset melt into the blue water. In many ways, the island decided the pace of everyone's life. The sea told you when to wake up, the sun told you when to rest, and the breeze told you when it was time to stop working because it got too hot. And in the middle of all this, the women of the community carried out their days with a mix of patience, humor, and a kind of peaceful routine that can easily make anyone listening drift into sleep. Motherhood in those days was not surrounded by medical machines or long hospital visits. It was simple. It was familiar. Women learned from their mothers. They learned from their aunts. They learned from the grandmothers who sat in the shade, fanning themselves with a dried palm leaf while giving advice that sounded like poetry and jokes at the same time. These older women had this talent for turning even serious matters into something calm. If you asked a grandmother, "Amma, how do you know when a baby is coming?" she might gently answer, Oh, when it feels like your inside is knocking for permission to come out. You'll know. Then she'd laugh, because to her, it was nothing to stress about. In a place where the ocean was always singing in the background, there was no fear in their voices, no rush. Everything was taken step by step. Women shared their experiences freely, not in a dramatic way, not with complicated details, but like girls chatting while cleaning fish at the beach. It was all a normal part of their day. They would sit together, washing clothes in the shallow lagoon, and talk about how many coconuts they cracked that morning, or how their stomach felt heavy that week. And the younger girls would listen with big eyes, not scared, just curious. That's how knowledge moved from one generation to another, not in books, but in laughter, stories, and small tips whispered between chores. Daily life didn't stop for anyone. A woman could be expecting a child, and still she might be sorting dried tuna, or weaving mats from screw pine leaves, or helping fix a fishing net. The island didn't allow anyone to get bored. Well, maybe the island allowed boredom in a good way, the kind of boredom that makes your mind quiet. One thing Maldivian women were known for was their steady calmness. People sometimes say islanders have sea patience, which basically means they don't panic easily. If you can live with waves crashing outside your window every day, you learn to take everything else lightly. And that patience made the community strong. They supported each other quietly. No dramatic shouting, no breaking news moments, just practical help when it was needed. When a woman was closer to giving birth, neighbors knew without anyone making a big announcement. The signs were easy to notice. Maybe she took longer breaks while working. Maybe she walked a little slower. Maybe she preferred sitting under the mango tree with the older ladies instead of cooking fish for the noon meal. Women who had already been through motherhood would gently guide her. "Sit down," they'd say. "Drink some coconut water. Don't worry, the body knows what to do." And that was the foundation of their belief. Nature knows. The body knows. The island knows. If the sea could rise every day and fall every night without being told, then surely humans could follow their own natural rhythm too. And in the center of this peaceful way of life was the extended family. Families lived close together, sometimes in the same compound, sometimes in houses so near you could pass a cup of tea through the window. Children ran everywhere, chasing chickens or collecting shells or just spying on the grown-ups. Women always had an extra pair of hands nearby, sisters, cousins, neighbors who were basically family. It was never just one person handling everything. The whole island took part in raising a child. That's why the women didn't worry too much. They were never alone. By the time a woman was ready to welcome a new child, the whole island was ready in their own quiet way. Someone would bring extra coir rope to tying things. Someone else might bring coconut milk. Another neighbor might sweep the yard or prepare a meal. The atmosphere was slow, but full of care, like a community working with one heartbeat. There were no fancy ceremonies, no big decorations. Maldivian island life was simple. The calmness itself was the celebration. And humor was always part of the story. Island women had a way of making everything sound lighter. Even in moments of tension, you'd hear someone say something funny. Maybe a woman would say, "I think this baby is taking his time because the weather is too hot." And the others would laugh because, honestly, the weather was always too hot. That simple humor kept everyone relaxed. When the child finally arrived, it felt like the quiet island had just added one more gentle sound to its music. Not loud crying, not big celebration, just another life joining the rhythm of the sea. And afterwards, the new mother rested, not in a high-tech room, but in the soft comfort of the home she already knew, surrounded by people she trusted. The older women would check on her, the younger ones brought water and food. Someone hummed a folk tune. The palm leaves outside rustled in the warm wind, and the ocean kept doing what it always does, moving slowly, endlessly, like it was singing a lullaby for the whole island. This slow, peaceful routine shaped many generations. It made motherhood feel less like a dramatic event and more like a natural milestone, something ordinary, steady,
and beautifully calm. In the soft nights of island life, when the stars hung low and the waves whispered at the shore, the community rested with a kind of deep ease. They knew tomorrow would come, and it would look almost exactly like today. And in that predictable rhythm, they found comfort. Island life didn't rush, motherhood didn't rush. Everything happened in its own time, just like the tide. And that slow, gentle pace is what made Maldivian women of the old days so patient, so balanced, and so relaxed in their everyday world.
Life in the old Maldivian islands was shaped as much by the sea as by the small, peaceful homes people built along the sandy paths. If you walk through one of those old neighborhoods in your imagination, you can almost hear the soft crunch of coral sand under your feet, the lazy creak of a palm tree, and maybe the far-off voice of a rooster who wakes up way too early every single day. For the women of the community, these homes were more than buildings. They were little worlds of comfort, work, and stories. And each home had its own personality, even though most were built in a similar, simple style. The houses were usually made of coral stone with coconut wood beams and thatched roofs. The walls stayed cool, even on days when the sun felt like it was trying to cook the entire planet. The roofs rustled softly every time a breeze slipped through, making a sound that could put anyone to sleep. Inside these homes, life moved at a slow and steady pace. Women would wake before sunrise, not because they loved getting up early, but because the island said so. When the sun came up, the heat followed close behind, so morning hours were precious. You'd hear soft footsteps, the sweep of a broom across the courtyard, the quiet clatter of metal bowls being arranged for breakfast. Nothing loud, nothing rushed. The courtyard was the heart of the house. Every home had one. It was where the day truly began. Women swept the sand into gentle patterns, partly for cleaning and partly because it just looked nice. A clean courtyard showed pride, but also calmness. It was a space for sharing news, drying fish, cracking coconuts, or simply sitting under the shade of a breadfruit tree. And oh, the shade. A good shady spot was like the island version of AC. Women knew exactly where the best patch of shade moved through the day. If you sat in the wrong place, the sun would slowly slide toward you like a sneaky lizard. But the experienced women always knew. They'd tap the younger girls and say, "Shift here or the sun will cook you like tuna," and everyone would laugh. The kitchens were simple and open, often connected to the courtyard. Cooking was not a lonely job. Women cooked while talking, joking, or giving small lessons on life. The sound of grated coconuts scraping against metal filled the mornings. The smell of curries drifted through the air, and sometimes a little chicken would try to sneak into the kitchen like it had paid rent. Someone would laugh and gently shoo it away. Daily work flowed easily from one task to another. One moment women were washing laundry in big clay pots. The next moment they were hanging clothes on coir ropes tied between palm trees. A light wind would sway the clothes like sleepy flags. The sound of the waves always sat in the background, making even chores feel peaceful. Island homes weren't huge, but they didn't need to be. Life happened outdoors as much as indoors. Children played along the sandy paths. Old aunties sat on wooden joali benches, telling stories or offering advice, sometimes invited, sometimes not. And inside the home, women kept everything running with a mix of skill and humor. Water was precious, so wells were important. Most homes had one nearby, and women would gather there early in the day. You'd hear buckets being lowered, water splashing softly, and the giggles of young girls comparing hairstyle ideas. It wasn't a place for complicated drama, just friendly talk, simple worries, and little jokes to make the work go faster. Bedrooms were simple too. No heavy furniture. A mat here, a folded sheet there, maybe a woven basket for clothes. Life didn't require much. Nights were warm, so people didn't need thick blankets.
Sometimes women would sit outside at night to enjoy the cooler air before going to bed. They'd talk about what happened during the day, maybe a funny moment, maybe something about the weather, maybe absolutely nothing important at all. And that was completely fine. In many homes, the main gathering space was the holwashi, a small open shelter outside the house where people sat in the evenings. Women would join too, especially during calm nights. They listened to the older men talk about fishing stories, even though the stories often had more creative decoration than truth. Women rolled their eyes but smiled politely because they knew the old storytellers had fun exaggerating. Inside the home, the women maintained a balance between tradition and daily need. The tools they used were simple: coconut husks for fire, coir ropes for tying things, clay pots for cooking, and woven mats for sleeping. These were not just tools, they were signs of culture, shaped by the environment and passed down for generations. And in this peaceful home setting, women built small routines that kept life steady. They knew which corner stayed cool at noon. They knew where the good breeze came from. They knew exactly how much fish to prepare for the family, even if 3 unexpected guests showed up without warning, which happened a lot in island life. People didn't call before visiting, they just appeared. And the women still managed to feed everyone with a smile. When the afternoon heat reached its peak, everything slowed down. The courtyard became quiet, birds hid in the trees, even the roosters gave up and took naps. Women used this time to rest, mend clothes, or simply sit still and enjoy the calm. The sound of palm leaves rubbing together made a soft, whispering noise, like the island sharing a secret lullaby. As the evening came, life picked up again. Women lit lamps, warmed dinner, swept the courtyard one last time, and watched the sky turn orange, pink, and purple. Sunset on the islands wasn't just a view, it was a moment of peace. Women often stood quietly for a few seconds, letting that soft light wash over them. The whole island seemed to take a deep breath. Nighttime brought a calm that wrapped the homes like a blanket. The slow hum of insects, the distant splash of waves, and the faint smell of the sea drifted into the rooms. Women prepared for sleep the same way they handled everything: gently, patiently, without rush. And even after a long day, they carried a quiet strength. They had managed the home, helped neighbors, guided the younger girls, laughed with friends, and kept the rhythm of the household steady, all without big noise or big praise. In the soft darkness of their island homes, they rested, and the houses, with their coral walls and coconut wood frames, rested with them. Another simple day ended, another peaceful night began.
If you've ever watched waves slowly lap at the shore, you know how steady and gentle island life can be. That's exactly how a typical day looked for Maldivian women in the old villages: steady, gentle, and full of quiet purpose. There was always something to do, but nothing felt rushed. Everything moved like the tide, predictable, calm, and somehow soothing. The day often started with a soft stretch, a quiet greeting to the sun, and a quick glance outside to see how the sky looked. If the wind whispered gently through the coconut trees, it meant it was a good day for collecting leaves or drying fish. If the clouds looked heavy, maybe some tasks would wait. Island life always paid attention to weather, even if nobody kept a fancy diary about it. Women had a long list of responsibilities, but they didn't think of it as a list. It was simply life. Take cooking, for example. Breakfast was usually a simple affair. Maybe some flatbread made from local grains, some fresh coconut, and fish cooked lightly over a clay stove. The act of preparing food wasn't rushed. It was done in harmony with the sounds of the day: waves rolling, birds singing, maybe a child giggling somewhere in the sand. After breakfast, the tasks continued. Sweeping the courtyard was a morning ritual, not just to clean, but to set the tone for the day. A clean courtyard symbolized order, calm, and respect for the home. Women often did this with soft humming, little jokes to themselves, or quiet observations of what the neighbors were up to, always in a light-hearted, relaxed way. Laundry was another key responsibility. Women carried buckets of water from the well, sometimes washing in clay pots, sometimes letting the cool lagoon help. The rhythm of scrubbing clothes was almost meditative, and as they hung them on coir ropes to dry, the fabrics fluttered in the wind, making the whole home seem alive in a calm, slow-motion way. Weaving mats, making baskets, and preparing tools for fishing or coconut gathering were all part of the routine. Hands moved almost automatically, passing knowledge from generation to generation. Young girls watched quietly, learning without realizing how much they were absorbing. By the time they were old enough to help in serious work, they already knew the rhythm of daily life as well as their mothers did. Midday was usually hot, so many women paused for a short rest. Sitting under a shady tree, they would sip coconut water, chat softly, or simply watch the slow dance of palm leaves in the wind. These moments of pause were just as important as the work itself. Life on the islands wasn't about speed. It was about steady progress, gentle attention, and knowing when to slow down. Caring for children was another ongoing task. Even while weaving mats or cooking fish, women kept one eye on the little ones. Children ran barefoot through the sand, climbed trees, and chased crabs. Sometimes they argued or tripped, and the women calmly guided them back to safety, often with a soft laugh. Raising children was a shared effort. Mothers, grandmothers, aunts, and neighbors all played a part, creating a warm network that supported both the children and the mothers themselves. Coconut trees were central to daily life. Collecting coconuts, peeling them, and preparing them for oil, milk, or cooking was a major task. Women had specific knowledge about which coconuts were ripe, which leaves could be used for weaving, and which coconuts had water best suited for drinking. This knowledge wasn't written down. It was observed, tested, and passed down. One mistake could mean wasted food or drink, but the women handled it all with gracefully. They often handled it all with gracefully, but the women handled it all with calm confidence, often joking quietly about how the fish are trickier than the children today. Sometimes the day included helping neighbors. Island life was all about community. If someone was sick, someone else cooked extra food. If a family needed a new mat or basket, women from nearby houses would help. Helping wasn't a chore. It was a quiet, expected part of life, done with a smile and sometimes a little teasing. "Oh, I see you finally decided to visit. Did the tide bring you?" That sort of soft humor was common. Evening arrived slowly. The sun sank towards the horizon, painting the sky in warm shades of orange, pink, and purple. Women would start preparing dinner, often coordinating with other family members to make sure everyone had what they needed. Cooking, cleaning, and finishing small tasks before nightfall created a satisfying rhythm. Each act, no matter how simple, contributed to the smooth functioning of the household. As darkness deepened, women gathered around lamps made from coconut oil, soft flames flickering on walls of coral stone. They might tell quiet stories, share small jokes, or plan for the next day. Even chores continued in a gentle way. Mending nets, folding mats, or washing dishes, everything had its place, and everything moved like a soft wave rolling onto the shore. The night ended with women resting, often in shared spaces with family nearby. Some prepared the mats for sleeping, others simply lay down to enjoy the gentle lull of island sounds. Crickets chirped, the ocean whispered, and palm leaves rustled softly in the wind. Women had completed the day's responsibilities with patience, care, and just the right touch of humor. It's important to notice that this wasn't a life of stress or exhaustion.
It was purposeful, yes, but peaceful. Each responsibility, cooking, cleaning, weaving, caring for children, was done with attention, skill, and a soft smile. The work itself became a rhythm, almost like a song. And the women who maintained this rhythm created a sense of stability for the entire island community. By the end of the day, the women's daily work had quietly held the household together. Children were safe, food was ready, tools were prepared, and the home remained calm. Even after sunset, the peaceful feeling lingered. Life on the island continued, slow and steady, until the next morning's sun returned to start the gentle rhythm all over again. And that is why the daily work of women was not just chores. It was the quiet pulse of island life. Each action, no matter how small, kept families and communities alive, connected, and at peace. And in that steady rhythm, anyone who watched or listened could feel their minds slowing, their shoulders dropping, and the gentle pull of sleep arriving.
When we imagine the Maldives, most people picture blue oceans, white sand, and swaying palm trees. But the islands were also a place where the women's clothing and appearance carried quiet meaning, soft, practical, and carefully balanced between comfort and tradition. And for anyone listening to this story at night, it's a perfect example of how even everyday things can be gentle and calming. Maldivian women dressed for the weather first. The sun was strong, the air was humid, and life moved mostly outdoors. Clothes had to be light, breathable, and easy to move in. Cotton and woven fabrics were common, often dyed in soft, natural colors. Whites, creams, and gentle pastels reflected the sun and stayed cool. Dark colors were saved for special occasions or cooler days. The everyday outfit was simple. A loose wraparound skirt, sometimes tied with a soft cord, allowed freedom to move while sweeping, cooking, or collecting coconuts. A blouse or tunic completed the outfit, made from the same light material. The idea wasn't to impress anyone. It was to make daily life easier, keeping the body cool and comfortable while still respecting local customs. Women also wore scarves or veils at times, especially if they were traveling between islands or visiting neighbors. These pieces were lightweight, often patterned, and sometimes brightly colored. But even then, the style was never heavy or restrictive. It floated in the wind, like a soft flag, and often became a playful accessory as children tugged at the ends or waves moved the cloth slightly during work. Footwear was rare. Sandals were sometimes worn, but most women preferred bare feet. The soft sand was easier to walk on barefoot, and it kept life slow. You couldn't rush through a beach barefoot. It forces you to take each step mindfully, paying attention to the texture of the sand and the gentle slope of the ground. In this way, even walking became a calm practice, connecting women with the land and the island's rhythm. Jewelry was simple: tiny gold or silver earrings, thin bangles, or a modest necklace. Nothing heavy or cumbersome. The idea wasn't to show off wealth, it was to enhance everyday life, to add a little personal flair without disrupting the flow of work. The jewelry would jingle softly as women moved, sometimes making a gentle melody that blended with the sound of the sea and rustling palm leaves. Hair was cared for carefully. Coconut oil was used not just for cooking, but for softening and protecting hair from the salty wind and sun. Long hair was braided or tied back for practical reasons, but always in a neat and tidy way. Sometimes flowers from the garden would be tucked into the braid, a soft reminder of nature's beauty. Even a small touch like that could brighten a quiet morning and give the day a little extra calm. The women's style reflected the environment, the culture, and their daily routines. Clothes were practical, yes, but also expressive.
A colorful scarf, a braided hairstyle, or a simple flower tucked behind an ear could tell a story without a word, and because life was slow, there was time to notice these details, appreciate them, and share small compliments or jokes among neighbors. "I see you borrowed the hibiscus from the garden again," someone might say, and everyone would laugh softly. During festivals or special gatherings, clothing became slightly more decorative. Women would wear brighter colors, more jewelry, and sometimes embroidered fabrics. But even then, the overall feeling was soft, flowing, and calm. Nothing noisy, nothing overwhelming. The colors, the textures, and the movement of the clothing added to the relaxed rhythm of island life, like sunlight filtering through palm leaves onto a sandy path. Children learned by watching. Young girls noticed how their mothers and older sisters dressed, how scarves floated in the wind, how jewelry made soft sounds with each step. They copied the styles gently, learning not just fashion, but the island's culture, one calm observation at a time. And the older women guided them, not by lecturing, but by showing and sometimes teasing in a warm, playful way. One interesting aspect of clothing was the connection with daily tasks. Women often had multiple sets of clothing, one for work, one for visiting neighbors, one for sleeping, and one for festivals. Each outfit had its own place in life, and switching from one to another became a soft signal that life's pace was changing. Time to cook, time to rest, time to celebrate. This awareness helped keep life smooth and predictable, another form of gentle order. Even the materials told a story. Cotton woven on the islands, natural dyes from plants, simple threads, all connected women to the environment. The fabrics, colors, and patterns weren't flashy. They were quiet, like the ocean, reflecting patience, care, and respect for nature's rhythm. Appearance wasn't about attracting attention. It was about feeling comfortable in one's skin, staying connected to the community, and harmonizing with the environment. A neat braid, a soft scarf, or a tiny flower in the hair enhanced the day without rushing it. It made work, walking, storytelling, and resting all feel smoother, gentler, and more connected. At night, when the day ended and women prepared to rest, clothes were folded or draped carefully, sandals set aside, and scarves removed. Hair was often washed with fresh water, lightly oiled and braided. Jewelry was set neatly on a wooden shelf. Everything had its place. Even small routines like this contributed to the calm, sleepy rhythm of island life. And so, in old Maldivian villages, clothing and appearance were much more than fashion. They were practical, expressive, and intertwined with daily work. They reflected patience, tradition, and an understanding that life moves best when it flows at its own pace. Observing this calm way of living can itself make someone listening feel lighter, more relaxed, and ready for sleep. The women's style, their soft routines, and their attention to detail all created a sense of order and peace. Nothing rushed, nothing harsh, nothing stressful, just soft movement, gentle color, and a slow rhythm that matched the tide, the wind, and the quiet heartbeat of the islands.
On a small Maldivian island, life tastes a little different than anywhere else. And by tastes, I don't mean fancy five-star restaurants or exotic spices from faraway lands. I mean the calm, practical, and deeply rooted flavors of everyday island life. For the women of the Maldives, cooking was both a responsibility and a quiet art, a way to nurture families, celebrate culture, and keep the rhythm of life steady. Breakfast usually started simply. Women might prepare flatbread made from locally grown grains, accompanied by fresh coconut or a small portion of dried fish.
Tea was often included, brewed in clay pots, giving off a faint, soothing aroma. Nothing rushed. The meal was about starting the day gently, like the sun rising slowly over the turquoise waters. The preparation itself was a calming ritual. Coconut, which was everywhere on the islands, played a central role. It was shredded, grated, or pressed for milk, and sometimes roasted for a subtle flavor. The sound of scraping coconut against metal or wooden tools was almost musical, blending with the distant crash of waves and the soft chatter of children playing nearby. You could imagine the island itself humming along with these small, precise actions. Fish was the main protein in daily meals. Islanders caught tuna, reef fish, and sometimes small crabs. Women cleaned, salted, or dried the fish carefully. Salting was an art. Too little, and the fish spoiled quickly. Too much, and it became nearly inedible. Women learned this balance from mothers and grandmothers, practicing patience and attention to detail. And yes, sometimes a piece of fish slipped off the table or disappeared, likely eaten by a curious dog or a snaky child, and they laughed softly rather than getting upset. After all, life is easier when you smile at small mishaps. Cooking over clay stoves or open fire pits was another ritual in itself. The flames flickered gently, warming the pots and the women's hands as they stirred curries or boiled vegetables. Aromas mixed slowly, blending coconut, fish, local spices, and sometimes herbs grown nearby. Each step was measured by intuition rather than strict recipes, relying on experience and careful observation. One woman would taste and adjust the salt or coconut milk. Another would chop vegetables with rhythmic precision, and children would sometimes assist, or simply watch in awe. Evening meals were quieter and more reflective. Families gathered on mats in the courtyard or inside the coral stone house. Women served the food with soft smiles, arranging dishes carefully and making sure each person received enough. The act of sharing a meal was as important as the meal itself. It reinforced connection, patience, and the slow rhythm of island life. Conversations were gentle, sometimes playful, sometimes thoughtful, always calm. And if someone accidentally dropped a piece of bread or spilled a bit of coconut milk, the moment turned into a soft joke rather than frustration. "Ah, the bread wanted to go for a swim," someone might say, and laughter floated through the warm air. Certain days of the week had special foods. If fish was abundant, women might prepare extra for drying or preserving. On festival days, meals were richer and more colorful, but never hurried or overwhelming. Dishes were made to be enjoyed slowly, appreciating the flavors, textures, and smells. The process of cooking itself was meditative, hands moving carefully, flames dancing lightly, and a calm focus that matched the gentle rhythm of the ocean outside. Coconut oil wasn't just for cooking, it was part of life, used to enhance flavors, preserve food, and even care for hair. Women knew exactly how much to add, when to heat it, and how to store it for maximum effect. And because coconut is so abundant, it created a subtle continuity. Taste, smell, and utility all connected to the environment in a soft, practical harmony. Even snacks and small bites were considered thoughtfully. Fruits like papaya, bananas, and mangoes were often served raw or sliced. Their natural sweetness complemented the simple daily meals, and children especially loved these treats. Women encourage kids to appreciate them slowly, savoring each bite rather than eating in a rush. After all, rushing on a small island seemed almost rude. It broke the calm rhythm of life. Sometimes neighbors joined for meals, especially when a fish was particularly large or an island event occurred. Women prepared extra portions generously, often with a soft joke about the unexpected visitors. Sharing food was a gentle way of connecting the community, building trust, and strengthening bonds. And even in these moments, the women maintained their quiet order, every dish set neatly, every mat in its place, and every guest welcomed warmly. Storage was also part of the art. Fish and coconut products were preserved carefully. Dried fish was stacked on racks in the sun, coconut milk stored in clay pots, and grains kept safe in woven baskets. Women monitored these supplies, adjusting quantities as needed, always with a calm hand and soft attention. Preservation wasn't just practical, it was a rhythm, a slow heartbeat that connected daily work to future meals and the long-term well-being of the household. And through all of this, women infused humor, patience, and creativity. If a pot of fish soup spilled slightly or a coconut fell unexpectedly, the moment wasn't a disaster. It was a gentle interruption, a reminder that life moves in soft waves, like the ocean beyond the windows. "Looks like the coconut wanted to dance," someone might whisper, and even a hard day of work could end with a small laugh. At night, after the meal, women cleaned up slowly, storing leftovers, washing dishes, and arranging cooking tools for the next day. Nothing rushed. The soft clatter of clay pots and the gentle splash of water became another part of the island's lullaby, blending seamlessly with the sound of wind, palm leaves, and distant waves. By the time they rested, the entire household carried a sense of calm completion. The day's work done, the family nourished, and the island's rhythm maintained. Food, cooking, and daily meals were much more than just sustenance. They were a meditation, a form of community care, and a soft connection to tradition. Through these actions, women shaped the island's culture, balanced the household, and provided both physical and emotional nourishment. Their work might have seemed ordinary, even boring to an outsider, but in its quiet, steady rhythm, it was profoundly important, calming, and beautiful.
Even though life on the Maldivian islands was slow and gentle, it was never dull. The days were filled with work, family, and quiet routines, but every so often, the islands came alive with festivals, songs, and traditions. These weren't the loud, flashing kinds of celebrations you might see in big cities. Instead, they were soft, rhythmic, and comforting, perfect for blending into the calm heartbeat of the islands. Festivals were often tied to nature, the ocean, or seasonal events. Women played a central role, preparing meals, decorations, and songs. They would wake early to gather ingredients, coconut leaves, and colorful flowers. Everything had a purpose, yet nothing felt rushed. The rhythm of preparation itself was like a meditation, hands moving steadily, soft conversations, laughter floating gently through the warm air. One common tradition involved singing while working. Whether weaving mats, cleaning fish, or preparing meals, women often hummed or sang short, repetitive songs. These weren't performances for anyone. They were rhythms to guide work and lift spirits. The tunes were simple, sometimes silly, and sometimes filled with stories of the sea. Children would join in, sometimes making up their own lyrics about crabs, waves, or mischievous monkeys. The songs became a soft soundtrack to island life, relaxing, predictable, and strangely comforting. Festivals were also moments of sharing. Women prepared special dishes, often larger than usual, to feed neighbors, relatives, and friends. Fish, rice, coconut, and fruits were arranged carefully, sometimes with little touches of decoration using leaves or flowers. Meals weren't rushed. Everyone ate slowly, appreciated each bite, and shared gentle conversations. Even small accidents, like a coconut rolling off the table or a little fish escaping, were turned into lighthearted jokes,
creating laughter without stress. Dance and music were part of celebrations, but never overwhelming. Men and women sometimes joined together to perform soft, rhythmic dances by the shore or in open courtyards. The movements were deliberate and gentle, often inspired by fishing, the tides, or the flight of birds. Drums and small percussion instruments kept a steady beat, while women's songs floated above like a soft melody. There was no hurry, no competition, just slow, graceful motion that everyone could follow. Children played near the edges of these gatherings. They were not separate from the celebration, but integrated into it. Sometimes they acted as little assistants, fetching coconut leaves or helping lay mats. Sometimes they simply watched in awe, learning the traditions and laughing quietly when someone tripped or made a funny mistake. Every slip or giggle was embraced with warmth. The festivals weren't about perfection. They were about participation, connection, and gentle joy. Certain days were reserved for religious or spiritual traditions, and women prepared quietly but meaningfully. They would gather herbs, flowers, or incense for offerings. Songs were sung softly, prayers whispered, and rituals performed slowly and carefully. Even small children could sense the rhythm of these days. Everything had a purpose, and the pace was deliberately unhurried. There was time to watch the waves, feel the wind, and breathe in the soft scents of the island as part of the ceremony. Even outside formal festivals, small daily traditions persisted. Women would greet neighbors with morning smiles, offer small portions of food, or share a funny story while tending coconut palms. Evening tea gatherings became informal rituals where news was shared, gossip exchanged lightly, and laughter flowed gently. These small acts kept the community connected, reinforcing bonds without urgency or stress. During special celebrations, clothing played a role too. Women wore soft, bright fabrics adorned with simple jewelry or small flowers in their hair. The appearance wasn't about impressing anyone. It was about participating fully in the calm joy of the event. Scarves and wraps flowed in the breeze as women moved slowly through courtyards or along the sandy paths, creating a serene, graceful visual rhythm that matched the sounds of singing and drums. As night fell on festival days, the island didn't suddenly go quiet. It shifted into a slower, cozier rhythm. Women helped clear up dishes, pack leftovers, and ensure everyone had a safe place to rest. The sounds of the festival, drums, singing, laughter, dwindled into soft echoes, blending with the whispers of the wind, the rustling of palm leaves, and the distant waves. The energy of the day transformed into the calm, peaceful feeling of shared satisfaction, warmth, and community. Through all these celebrations and traditions, the women of the Maldives were not just participants, they were the quiet anchors. Their soft laughter, careful preparation, and gentle guidance shaped the experience for everyone. Children learned rhythm, humor, patience, and social grace. Men participated, yes, but often followed the calm lead of the women. And the entire island pulsed with a slow, deliberate, reassuring heartbeat. What makes these festivals and songs so remarkable is their quietness. There's no rush, no pressure to perform, no need for fancy decorations. The island itself provides the perfect setting: sun, sand, ocean, and gentle breeze. The songs, the work, the meals, and the dances all reflect the natural rhythm of life. And for anyone listening, even now, it's almost impossible not to feel the slow, soothing pace seep into your own mind. So, in the Maldives, festivals and traditions weren't loud spectacles. They were soft gatherings, gentle songs, shared meals, and rhythmic movements that everyone could follow. Women were the heart of it, guiding the community with steady hands, kind humor, and calm energy. The children watched, the neighbors participated, and the island hummed quietly along. And as the night deepened, After the lamps were dimmed and the courtyard quieted, the echo of the day's songs lingered like a lullaby. The sound of laughter, the soft tapping of drum beats, the gentle rustling of palm leaves, and the distant waves blended into a serene calm. The rhythm of island festivals, songs, and traditions became part of the slow, sleepy story of everyday life, a story designed to settle minds and carry listeners gently toward rest.
Life on the Maldivian islands wasn't only about chores, cooking, or festivals. There was also a quiet, steady rhythm of learning. For young women, education didn't always happen in classrooms with chalkboards or fancy desks. Instead, it happened slowly, softly, woven into daily life, family activities, and community interaction. And just like the tide, learning flowed gently, unnoticed at first, but shaping minds and hearts over time. From a young age, girls watched the women around them. Mothers, aunts, grandmothers, and older cousins were teachers without ever saying, "Class is starting." Tasks like cooking, weaving, fishing preparation, or caring for younger children became lessons. Each movement had a purpose. Each soft word carried instruction. The learning wasn't forced. It was part of living, as natural as breathing in the sea air. One morning, for example, a girl might help her mother prepare fish for drying. She watched the technique: how to clean it carefully, how to salt it evenly, how to arrange it on racks to catch the sun. Her mother might hum a gentle tune while working, or make a soft joke about the fish being lazy today. The girl learned not just the practical steps, but patience, observation, and rhythm. She learned that every task has its pace, and rushing only makes things messy. Weaving was another lesson. Women used long, steady movements to craft mats, baskets, and ropes. Young girls were given small pieces of fiber to practice on. They watched how threads crossed, how patterns formed, and how the finished product was strong, flexible, and useful. Mistakes were accepted with soft laughter rather than scolding. "The coconut leaves like to wiggle," a mother might say, and everyone would smile. Learning was gentle, forgiving, and filled with small joys. Even storytelling became a form of education. Older women and men shared tales of the past, folklore, and soft advice hidden within fables. Children didn't just listen, they absorbed history, morals, and cultural knowledge. One story might explain how a wise fisherman avoided trouble at sea. Another might teach patience, kindness, or respect for nature. The rhythm of the story, the soft cadence of voices, and the slow unfolding of events made learning easy, calming, and memorable. Practical knowledge wasn't limited to household work. Young women also learned about the island environment. They observed the tides, winds, and clouds. They knew which plants could be used for food, medicine, or dye. They noticed bird migration patterns and the behavior of crabs and fish. Nature itself became a teacher, offering lessons that were subtle, slow, and deeply integrated into everyday life. Soft humor was part of education too. Mistakes weren't harshly corrected. If a girl dropped a basket of coconuts or misaligned a weaving pattern, the older women might tease gently, "Looks like the coconuts wanted a vacation." The laughter that followed made learning enjoyable and encouraged curiosity. It reinforced the idea that mistakes are just part of life, and life itself moves at its own pace. Reading and writing, when taught, were done slowly. Some families used simple tools, palm leaves, ink made from natural dyes, and styluses to practice letters and numbers. Children copied characters carefully, sometimes while sitting near a gently simmering pot of coconut milk or listening to a soft lullaby from their mother. Learning in this context felt natural, connected to daily life, and never rushed. Observation was another teacher. Young women learned by noticing how tasks were completed efficiently,
how interactions with neighbors were handled politely, and how older women solved problems with calm reasoning. Skills like negotiation, storytelling, and even humor were picked up simply by being present. The education was holistic, practical, social, and emotional all at once. Even leisure time offered learning opportunities. Girls might play quiet games with woven mats, counting shells, or practicing simple rhymes. They learned rhythm, coordination, and memory, while laughing softly. The lessons were wrapped in play, making the process effortless and enjoyable. And because the island pace was slow, there was always time for reflection, observation, and practice. By the time girls reached adulthood, much of what they needed to know was already internalized. They could cook, weave, care for children, manage household tasks, understand the sea, and participate in community life with confidence. But it didn't feel like formal education. It was part of living, absorbed gently and naturally over years. The knowledge became part of them, as calming and steady as the waves rolling against the shore. Women also learned about social responsibilities. They observed how older women helped neighbors, mediated small disagreements, or participated in festivals. Young women absorbed these lessons quietly, understanding their role in maintaining harmony, offering help, and balancing work and family life. Humor and kindness were always part of the equation. Life wasn't about pressure, it was about connection. In this soft, patient way, young women grew up prepared for adulthood without ever feeling forced or rushed. They learned the practical, emotional, and cultural skills necessary for life on the islands. And because learning was calm, continuous, and integrated into daily routines, it also taught resilience, patience, and mindfulness, the quiet strength that shaped the community. By the end of the day, after helping with chores, listening to stories, and observing the world, a young woman would often sit quietly under a tree or by the shore. She might hum softly, watch the waves, and reflect on the lessons of the day. Education had been absorbed, not drilled. It had been gentle, slow, and filled with laughter and care. And in that way, the cycle of learning continued naturally from one generation to the next. And as night fell, children rested, mothers reflected, and the island itself seemed to hold its breath, settling into a calm rhythm that mirrored the steady pulse of life, learning, and quiet growth. In this environment, education was never hurried, never loud, and never stressful. It was simply part of living, breathing, and sleeping in harmony with the islands. On the Maldivian islands, life moved slowly, and so did the approach to health and healing. There were no bustling hospitals or loud clinics. Instead, women carried centuries of quiet knowledge, passed down through generations, about caring for themselves, their families, and the community. The island itself became a teacher, providing natural remedies, soft lessons, and gentle rhythms for staying well. From a young age, girls observed how older women handled minor illnesses, injuries, or discomforts. A scraped knee, a headache, or a mild fever rarely caused panic. Instead, the woman of the house would calm the child, hum softly, and prepare a small remedy. Coconut water, leaves, herbs, and gentle massages were common tools. Healing was slow, careful, and respectful of the body's natural rhythms. There was a soft understanding that the body often knew what to do. Sometimes all it needed was rest, warmth, and attention. Coconut, for instance, was much more than a food. Its water hydrated, its oil soothed the skin, and its milk could be used in simple poultices for minor ailments. Women knew exactly which part of the coconut to use, how to prepare it, and when it would be most effective. These skills were learned by observing, practicing, and sometimes making small mistakes that became lessons. A spilled coconut oil bottle might elicit a soft laugh and a lesson about careful pouring, turning mishaps into gentle education. Local plants and herbs were also part of the island's pharmacy. Leaves, roots, flowers, and barks were carefully gathered, dried, and stored. Some were used for teas to calm the stomach, others for compresses on sore muscles, and some for mild colds or coughs. Knowledge about which plant to use, in what quantity, and for how long was transmitted quietly from mother to daughter. No charts or labels, just memory, observation, and trust in tradition. Women also learned the art of massage and gentle care. If someone had stiff muscles from carrying baskets or bending over tasks, women would rub the affected areas softly, sometimes using coconut oil or herbal pastes. The process was slow, rhythmic, and soothing. Often, while massaging, they would hum a soft tune, tell a short story, or make a gentle joke, blending care with comfort and relaxation. Bathing routines were part of health too. Warm water from wells or the lagoon, sometimes infused with herbs, cleaned the body and soothed the skin. Women taught children to wash carefully, take time to enjoy the water, and treat their bodies with respect. Even brushing hair and caring for nails was approached with calm patience. Appearance and hygiene were intertwined with health, forming gentle daily rituals that grounded life on the island. Rest was understood as medicine. When someone felt weak or unwell, it wasn't unusual for neighbors and family to step in, quietly taking over chores while the person rested. Women learned to recognize signs of fatigue or illness without fuss, often offering herbal teas, soft blankets, or a shady place to sit. The focus was on support, not panic, and humor often lightened the mood. A woman might say, "The sun is too strong today, you need to hide like the crabs," and everyone would chuckle softly. Diet played a crucial role in maintaining health. Meals were balanced with fish, rice, coconut, fruits, and occasionally vegetables. Women knew how to combine ingredients to provide energy, hydration, and strength. Spices were used sparingly, enhancing flavor without overwhelming digestion. These subtle practices helped prevent illness and kept the family strong, quietly weaving nutrition into everyday routines. Pregnancy and childbirth, handled in the calm rhythm of island life, relied heavily on traditional remedies. Women who had experienced childbirth guided younger women, teaching them which foods, oils, or herbs could provide strength. They taught gentle exercises, breathing methods, and when to rest. The knowledge was shared in whispers, stories, and quiet demonstrations. Humor often softened the experience. "The baby is shy today. Perhaps it wants more coconut water," an older woman might say, and everyone would smile softly. Even mental health was considered. Women recognized stress, worry, or sadness as part of life. They encouraged quiet reflection, time by the sea, conversation with a trusted friend, or simple laughter. Island life, with its slow pace, the rhythm of the waves, and the songs of birds, offered natural healing for the mind. Women understood that calmness, patience, and gentle attention were just as important as any herb or treatment. Accidents, though rare, were handled with steady hands. Minor cuts were cleaned with water, herbs applied, and soft bandaging done if needed. More serious injuries required improvisation, clean cloths, careful attention, and calm guidance until help could be reached. The women's ability to remain composed and focused in these situations was itself a lesson for younger generations, teaching that calm minds and steady hands are powerful tools. Community gatherings sometimes included knowledge sharing. Older women would explain remedies in soft voices, allowing everyone to observe and ask questions. Children and young women learned quietly, taking mental notes. Humor and gentle storytelling made even serious topics approachable. A forgotten step in a recipe or a misused leaf would become a memorable lesson, and laughter reinforced the teaching. By nightfall, after a day of activity, women ensured that the household was in order, that everyone was comfortable, and that the sick or tired were resting. Herbal teas might be prepared, warm compresses applied, and soft songs hummed to lull the body and mind into peace. The act of caring for health became intertwined with the rhythm of life, blending work, rest, nutrition, and gentle attention into one flowing, calming practice. In this way, health on the islands wasn't about panic or rigid rules. It was slow, attentive, and deeply connected to the environment. Women acted as healers, guides, and teachers, sharing knowledge with humor, patience, and care. Their skills maintained the physical, emotional, and cultural well-being of the community, shaping generations of strong, balanced, and peaceful people. And as the night deepened, the sounds of the sea whispered softly through open windows, the palm leaves rustled, and the household settled into rest. The lessons of health, healing, and traditional remedies lingered quietly in the minds of young women and children. Knowledge had been passed on, care had been given, and the island itself seemed to hum a lullaby, wrapping everyone in a soft, sleepy embrace.
On the small Maldivian islands, pregnancy was seen as a quiet, natural part of life. It wasn't celebrated with loud parties or flashy decorations, but it was honored with soft attention, calm care, and gentle preparation. Women who were expecting a child moved through the days slowly, guided by the wisdom of older women and the natural rhythm of the islands. From the very beginning, pregnancy was approached with mindfulness. Women observed their bodies carefully, noting changes in energy, appetite, and mood. They adjusted their daily routines, doing less of the heavy work and taking more time to rest. Even tasks like sweeping courtyards, preparing food, or collecting water were approached gently. Laughter, soft songs, and quiet conversations often accompanied these activities, making the days calm and supportive. Nutrition was an important part of preparation. Fresh fish, rice, coconut, and fruits were consumed carefully to provide energy and nourishment. Women learned which combinations of food and herbs were particularly helpful, drawing from generations of experience. Nothing was complicated or strict, just a natural understanding of what the body needed. Sometimes younger women were teased gently, "Eat that coconut now, or the baby might think it's still swimming in the sea," and everyone would laugh softly. Support from family and neighbors was central. Older women acted as guides, quietly observing, teaching, and assisting with daily tasks. If a pregnant woman needed extra help, it was offered willingly. Children, too, learned to step carefully and help when possible, picking up small chores or simply offering a smile. The community rhythm adjusted gently around the new life, making every day predictable and calm, which was good for both the mother and the baby. Clothing and comfort became important. Pregnant women wore loose, breathable fabrics that allowed freedom of movement and kept the body cool. Soft scarves, wraps, and light cotton were preferred. Jewelry was minimal. Every detail was considered for comfort, practicality, and a touch of quiet style. Appearance was less about impressing anyone and more about feeling peaceful, supported, and in harmony with daily life. Women also spent time preparing the household for the new arrival. Mats were laid out, baskets prepared, and spaces arranged to be safe and comfortable. Everything had a place, and routines were adapted to include the needs of a newborn. The act of preparation itself became a calming rhythm, folding clothes, arranging soft blankets, and quietly talking to the child even before birth. Sometimes a gentle joke would slip in. "I hope you like the sound of waves. That's your first lullaby." These moments built anticipation without stress. Mental and emotional preparation was as important as physical care. Women would walk along the beach, sit under palm trees, and listen to the waves. These quiet moments allowed reflection, mindfulness, and a sense of connection to the larger rhythm of life. Pregnancy was seen as part of the natural flow, like the tide rolling in and out. It wasn't rushed, and there was no pressure to perform or meet expectations. Calm observation and gentle preparation were valued above all. Education about childbirth was passed down orally.
Young women listened carefully to the experiences of mothers, grandmothers, and aunts. Advice was offered in soft voices, often mixed with humor to ease worries. If the baby wiggles too much, just tell it the crab is coming. These stories conveyed practical guidance, emotional support, and a sense of reassurance that was soothing for everyone. Even daily tasks were adjusted to be safer. Carrying water, lifting baskets, or working near fire became more careful, slower, and deliberate. Rhythm mattered. Women moved in harmony with their bodies, listening to signals of fatigue or discomfort. Rest breaks were encouraged and respected. And because everyone around them understood the importance of calm and steady care, pregnant women rarely felt alone or overwhelmed. Socially, pregnancy was integrated naturally into the community. Neighbors offered quiet help, shared small meals, and provided company for gentle walks or chats. There was no rush, no judging, only support. Laughter, light teasing, and soft songs often filled these interactions, making them feel familiar, safe, and calming. In this way, anticipation of the new life became a shared rhythm, a quiet celebration without noise or chaos. As the months passed, preparation extended to emotional readiness. Women practiced patience, mindfulness, and empathy. Thinking about the life they were nurturing, they imagined the baby's first steps, first laugh, and first interaction with the world, but always with a soft pace. Life on the islands taught them to expect gentle rhythms rather than sudden surprises, and pregnancy fit perfectly into that understanding. By night, after a day of careful movement, light work, and soft reflection, pregnant women would settle down. Mats were laid out, baskets arranged, and spaces arranged to be safe and comfortable. Everything had a place, and routines were adapted to include the needs of a newborn. The act of preparation itself became a calming rhythm, folding clothes, arranging soft blankets, and quietly talking to the child even before birth. Sometimes a gentle joke would slip in. "I hope you like the sound of waves. That's your first lullaby." These moments build anticipation without stress. Pregnancy on the islands wasn't dramatic or attention-seeking. It was integrated into daily life, rhythm, and culture. Women approached it with care, humor, and steady patience, guided by generations of knowledge and the calming presence of the sea. Every meal, song, walk, and gentle joke contributed to the anticipation, building a sense of peace and readiness that stretched beyond the mother to the entire household and community. And as the night deepened, after the sun had dipped into the horizon and the stars appeared above, the island itself seemed to pause. The waves whispered, palm leaves rustled softly, and the household rested in quiet anticipation. The unborn child was gently cradled by the rhythm of life itself, a part of the slow, soothing pulse of island existence. A rhythm designed to calm, nurture, and prepare both mother and baby for the days to come.
On the Maldivian islands, pregnancy and childbirth were never seen as solitary journeys. The strength of community and the knowledge of midwives created a calm, steady rhythm that supported women before, during, and after giving birth. Life moved slowly on the islands, and so did the care for new life, thoughtful, deliberate, and gentle, like a soft tide rolling in. Midwives were central to this rhythm. These experienced women carried generations of knowledge, passed down through stories, observation, and practice. They weren't doctors in the modern sense, but they understood the body, herbs, natural remedies, and emotional support in ways that were deeply practical and calming. A midwife's presence alone brought reassurance, like the soft whisper of wind through palm leaves. Preparation for childbirth involved more than physical readiness. Midwives guided expectant mothers with gentle advice on nutrition, rest, and daily routines. They taught techniques for breathing, positioning, and relaxation, all delivered softly, often with a quiet joke to ease tension. "Remember, the baby likes calm waters, not waves of worry," a midwife might say.
and everyone would smile. Humor and care were woven together seamlessly. Community support extended beyond the midwife. Women's networks were the heartbeat of the islands. Mothers, aunts, grandmothers, and neighbors offered help in daily chores, allowing pregnant women to rest. Children were included too, learning to be gentle, observant, and caring. Everyone had a role, and the rhythm of assistance was calm and unhurried. No one hurried a task, and no one stressed the mother. Everything moved in harmony with her needs. Knowledge was shared openly but quietly. Midwives demonstrated how to prepare for the baby, arranging mats, setting aside clean blankets, and creating spaces that were safe and welcoming. Herbs and natural remedies were explained with soft caution. For example, a little leaf tea might help with digestion, while gentle massages with coconut oil eased discomfort. Every lesson was practical, repeated with patience, and designed to be remembered without pressure. Even during labor, the focus was on calm support. Midwives guided mothers with soft words, gentle touch, and encouragement. Family members quietly assisted, offering water, holding hands, or simply being present. The environment was intentionally soothing. Lamps were dim, blankets were soft, and the natural sounds of the island provided a gentle backdrop. There was no rush, no panic, just steady, attentive care. Community rituals often accompanied childbirth. Women might sing soft songs to ease pain, tell gentle stories to distract and comfort, or quietly cheer for the mother's progress. Laughter and humor were used sparingly but effectively. "I think the baby is tapping its own rhythm now," bringing smiles in moments of tension. The combination of music, story, and human connection created a sense of security that modern medical tools could not replicate. After birth, midwives and experienced women guided the mother and newborn through the first days. Breastfeeding techniques were taught, positions adjusted, and gentle massages applied. The mother rested while others carried out chores, cooked meals, and ensured that the household ran smoothly. Every detail mattered, but nothing was rushed. The care was deliberate, calm, and deeply nurturing. Traditional remedies played a role in postnatal care. Herbs, warm compresses, and coconut oil were used to soothe muscles, aid recovery, and maintain balance in the body. Women observed carefully for signs of fatigue, discomfort, or mild illness, providing gentle remedies before any problem could escalate. Mistakes were rare, but treated lightly, often turning into soft lessons for younger women learning the craft of care. Education continued during this period. Young women watched closely, noting how the midwife communicated, how older women assisted, and how humor was used to ease tension. They learned practical techniques, cultural rituals, and emotional skills that would be essential in their own futures. The island became a live classroom, and every birth was a quiet, shared lesson for the entire community. Support extended to emotional well-being as well. Midwives encouraged mothers to rest, reflect, and enjoy the quiet moments with their baby. Gentle encouragement, storytelling, and soft songs nurtured calmness. The community understood that a relaxed mother created a peaceful environment, helping both her and her child thrive. Laughter, soft conversation, and gentle care were integral, blending seamlessly with practical support. Even the preparation of food during this period followed careful traditions. Meals were nourishing, easy to digest, and designed to replenish energy. Coconut-based dishes, lightly cooked fish, and soft fruits provided balance. The act of eating was calm, shared, and comforting, reinforcing the slow, steady rhythm that carried women through recovery and adaptation to motherhood. By nightfall, the household was serene. Midwives and experienced women ensured that the mother and newborn were comfortable, that the home was organized, and that the rhythm of care continued. The sounds of the island, the whispering waves, rustling palm leaves, distant bird calls, created a gentle lullaby. The mother rested, the baby slept, and the community quietly celebrated another successful, gentle birth. In the Maldives, Childbirth was not a solitary, stressful event. It was a shared experience supported by knowledge, community, and rhythm. Midwives led with calm authority, women offered practical and emotional support, and young learners absorbed lessons quietly. Humor, gentle care, and the natural pace of island life made every birth a soft, memorable, and comforting journey. And as the night deepened, the island itself seemed to sigh softly, wrapping mother, child, and community in a quiet embrace. The lessons of support, wisdom, and care lingered in the hearts of everyone involved, becoming part of the slow, soothing rhythm of life, one that carried forward, quietly and gently.
It's a good time to pause and reflect. Life here moved slowly, gently, and purposefully. Every small task, from preparing meals to weaving mats, from caring for children to guiding young women, was part of a rhythm that shaped generations. And through it all, women played a central role, weaving culture, wisdom, and calm into everyday life. Legacy wasn't measured by wealth, fame, or grand monuments. It was measured in softer, subtler ways. The laughter of children learning songs and games, the gentle rhythm of daily chores, the care shown to a neighbor, and the passing down of knowledge from one generation to the next. Every act of teaching, helping, or joking became part of a shared memory, echoing quietly through households and across the islands. Consider the lessons of patience. From weaving mats to preparing coconut-based meals, women taught that mastery comes slowly. Mistakes weren't failures. They were opportunities to learn, laugh, and adjust. This patient approach shaped not only skills, but character. Children learned that life is not a race. It is a rhythm, like the gentle pulse of the ocean against the shore. And as they grew, they carried this understanding into every aspect of life. Community care was another legacy. Women demonstrated that life is easier and calmer when shared. Whether assisting a pregnant mother, offering remedies for the sick, or helping with chores, each action reinforced bonds. Humor was woven through it all, softening challenges, encouraging cooperation, and reminding everyone that even serious work can be lightened with a smile. In these quiet ways, women nurtured resilience and kindness as essential qualities of island life. Observing the environment was also a skill passed down. Women taught younger generations to notice subtle changes in tides, winds, and wildlife. They showed how to gather coconut leaves for weaving, fish for meals, or herbs for remedies, all without disturbing the natural balance. These lessons weren't written in books. They were learned slowly, gently, and with reverence for the world around them. The islands themselves became a classroom, and every day offered new, soft insights. Songs, stories, and festivals were another thread in this legacy. Women preserved and shared cultural knowledge through melodies, soft humor, and carefully told tales. Children learned history, morality, and social wisdom not by lectures, but through rhythm, repetition, and gentle participation. Even the simplest lullaby carried centuries of collective memory, teaching that learning, joy, and care can coexist in a slow, comforting pace. Pregnancy, birth, and childcare demonstrated the importance of preparation, observation, and calm guidance. Midwives and experienced women ensured that new mothers were cared for, that traditions were respected, and that every life entering the community was supported with patience and love. Humor, soft conversation, and gentle touch made even difficult moments lighter, reinforcing the lesson that care and calm go hand in hand. The next generation learned by example, absorbing skills and values without stress. The slow rhythm of daily life itself was perhaps the most profound part of the legacy. Chores, meals, and work were not rushed. Each action was deliberate, observed, and appreciated. Children, women, and men all learned to move in harmony with natural rhythms, tides, sun, and seasons. This gentle pace wasn't boring. It was soothing, meditative, and deeply effective.
It taught mindfulness, resilience, and the art of living with grace. As generations passed, the legacy continued quietly. A young woman learning to weave would recall the patience of her mother. A child tasting coconut milk would remember the warmth of shared meals. A song hummed during chores would remind everyone of stories passed down for centuries. Knowledge, care, and humor became invisible threads connecting past, present, and future, flowing as steadily as the sea surrounding the islands. Even the smallest details mattered. The soft folds of fabric, the careful stacking of dried fish, the gentle application of coconut oil. Each action carried lessons of order, attention, and respect. Humor and storytelling enhanced these moments, keeping life light without diminishing responsibility. The rhythm of daily life itself became a form of education, passing wisdom without force or pressure. At night, when the islands were quiet and stars reflected on the calm ocean, one could feel this legacy in the air. The rustling of palm leaves, the distant waves, and the quiet, steady pulse of life that has shaped generations of women on the islands. It's a pulse that invites you to slow down, breathe, and drift peacefully into sleep. In the end, life on the islands is a reminder. Calm, steady care, quiet teaching, and gentle humor are powerful forces. They create a legacy that is invisible yet enduring, simple yet profound, and always, always soothing. The women of the Maldives nurtured not just their families, but an entire culture of patience, kindness, and calm, a culture that continues to ripple through the islands and through time itself.